Welcome, everyone. We're delighted to have participants from various parts of the globe watching this live or later on. I am very happy to host this talk today by Anisio Resem, who will be talking about mediumship as a healing tool. Let's all give Anisio a very warm welcome. And before he starts his presentation, allow me to introduce him. Anisio Resem is the co-founder and current president of the Spiritist Society of San Diego. He has been involved in the Spiritist movement for over 25 years and has studied and collaborated with institutions such as the Spiritist Federation of the State of São Paulo, FEESP, and the Allan Kardec Spiritist Center of Campinas in Brazil. For more than 20 years, he has focused on the study and practice of mediumship within the Spiritist framework. Anisio holds a degree in electrical engineering, along with specialized training in business management and software engineering. Please take this opportunity to send your questions during the presentation using the chat window. Anisio has reserved time to address your comments and questions once he concludes his presentation. So Anisio, welcome to Spiritism Talk Series. It is all yours.
Peter, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much. And every time I hear the bio, we have to think about how much time has passed, right? So I've been working with mediumship for since my late teens, and that has been a while. And to be honest with you, I still feel a novice. And this is a field, this is a area of work where being in the flesh, as we believe, right, we're never going to truly understand the extension. So we're in the beginning. And we make the joke that many of the mediums that actually, make the work today, the work productively with mediumship, didn't start this life. This is something that we will need multiple experiences to become a useful tool, to become a productive tool with this amazing human ability that we are even beginning to understand. Science so far has not even bumped into it yet or accepted it as a tool yet. But here's the thing. What I wanted to talk to you today is to talk about mediumship in terms of one of the applications, in terms of how we use mediumship, especially in the Spiritist movement, but not only in the Spiritist movement. There are other lines of thinking that do similar work as well. But I know that this is a broadcast, and I know this is, it might be this is your first video on Spiritism at all, and I don't want to hit the ground completely from, hit the 90, 60 miles per hour, like first second. I'm going to give you an introduction of what we think about mediumship just real quick, so to get you up to speed and what we mean by mediumship and what we're talking about here in general, right? So first, the most important thing about Spiritism, if this is your first video, is that we don't believe the humans are just the flesh. We don't believe that biology is all we are. We are fundamentally spirits, souls, whatever you want to call it. We're beings that are not bound to the body, right? We are having just one experience right now in the flesh. That's it, right? We don't belong here, right? We are here right now for our experience, for growth, and for part of our evolutionary process that has happened for times immemorial. We don't know how old we are, right? We know on Earth that, about 1 billion years ago, only bacteria were alive in biology, in terms of biology. And now look at us, like the variety of species, and including the human being. So it took about 1 billion years biologically to evolve into human beings. We don't have yet an idea of the spiritual evolution. We know eventually we will, right? And that's where we are. So for us, human beings are this element that transcends matter. So it creates a simple situation. So when our bodies stop functioning, when we discarnate, when we die, what we believe is simply our own mind, the mind we have right now, not the other mind or any other thing, just simply who we are, disconnects from our body and continues our life in a different sensorial environment, maybe, right? But fundamentally the same people, right? So we simply continue. So your mind, my mind, and every single mind of every single human being right now on earth, all 8 billion of us, the moment our bodies stop functioning, the moment our bodies no longer can biologically be viable, so we transition into the spiritual realm with the same mind, with the same ideas. In That's simply reality. We think science is very close to that. There's a lot of indications. This is not the topic today, right? But soon, science will reach that conclusion as well, right? We just don't have time to wait for that. We have to live our lives today, and that's the Spiritist movement. That's one of the core principles. One of them. We're going to talk about the other one as well. So we're a Christian movement, and we're going to talk about the gospel in a few more moments, right? So, what is mediumship then? Right? Well, there's many consequences of us not dying, of our bodies, of our minds, or continuing. Right? There's a whole interaction after we continue life. Right? So there's a whole element of science that we have not reached yet. There's a whole, we have tons of information in the Spiritist movement that we're blessed, right, about what happens in this other side. But one of the phenomena that's natural to human beings is there's an interaction, right, between human beings, just us, outside of the body, and us here, right, while we are still incarnated, right? This ability to perceive interactions with other minds that discarnated, we consider it mediumship, the perception we have. And there's many types of mediumship, many ways this thing happen. It's a somewhat complex area of study for us in Spiritism. Kardec did an incredible job of documenting types of mediumship, ways this phenomena manifest. Some people have multiple ways. There's the visual, there's the speaking, talking, there's the voices, there's intuition, there's healing, there's physical phenomena. There's a lot of things that happen when it comes to mediumship, right? And we get into the details of each one of them, when we study mediumship inside the Spiritist framework, right? But you have to understand fundamentally is that mediumship is just the interaction between human beings. The same way we are talking right now, the same way we're using language right now to communicate with each other, and I'm expressing my ideas and talking to you through this language, right? It's a human to human communication. Mediumship is a phenomena that also connects minds. Just the only difference is that, the minds, some of the minds are disconnected from the flesh, right? It sounds supernatural. It sounds fantastic, and mediumship has been portrayed as something fantastical or supernatural, right? And for us, they couldn't be further from the truth. This is just a natural phenomena that has happened throughout time, since the beginning of time, right? This is just part of nature. The same way gravity, the same way electricity has always existed, right? Since the universe was created, right? So we understand that after the first few moments of creation of the universe, we have gravity already actuating on us. We had electricity. Mediumship is just the use of the same fundamental principles of the universe available to us. And it happens in so many different levels. But it's very important for us, specifically right now, in our stage of life where we are waking up to spirituality in a more conscious way, right? It's known past in our past civilizations of past, right? You see mediumship throughout history everywhere, and in human civilizations, right? But with the advent of the modern scientific revolution, right? So it brought a lot of benefit, but in this area specifically, because science is not there, we still see the human as just a biological being, right? So that part of who we are is not being worked with right now in the mainstream, in our mainstream understanding of what a human being is. But it's going to change soon, right? So we think this is just it's going to happen naturally. But fundamentally for us, right? We develop, we study mediumship in our movement, and we develop an approach of experimentation, which means we learn using the most interesting laboratory we all have, which is ourselves. This is a bit of a problem, right? We can study science right now with the lab that's outside. We go visit the chemistry lab, a physics lab, and we can experiment and we can learn from that. When it comes to mediumship, the laboratory today is ourselves, right? So we learn from our own experience, from the theoretical framework. Many are available, but we specifically use the study of Kardec and Kardec Nibini's book, and the framework that has been developed based on that. And we use our own bodies as the laboratory. That's why when I say to you, I'm very comfortable with mediumship, and I've been working with it inside the Spiritist framework for probably 30 years, more than 30 years now. But do my experience convey to you right now? I can talk to them. I'm going to talk to some of them maybe today, right? But they are my experiences. It's hard for me to convey to you, right? Because you will hear from me if you might value my opinion, you might value my perception, but still my experience. So discovery mediumship today is a process that is of the individual. So you will have to do that yourself. We suggest in our studies in the Spiritist centers, and I think many Spiritist centers have studies on mediumship and practice it. That's the only way really to discover today, to bring mediumship to your awareness. Not everybody's lucky to actually choose to study mediumship. A significant number of people among us don't have that blessing, don't have that opportunity, because in some cases the sensitivity, the ability the person has in certain areas of mediumship is really intense, and that creates a situation where the typical normal quote unquote life that we expect today is not possible, because the perception is so intense that creates experiences that make life complicated, right? You imagine a person that has visions, right, that cannot be explained by those around them, might have a very difficult life if those visions are not properly understood. Same thing if you hear voices, same thing if your sensations are acute, or even physical phenomena, right? Those things, those people sometimes have no choice, and they are all around us, right, struggling. Many of them don't find a spiritualist framework where they can be educated or understand that this is just normal. This is just like being tall, right? We don't think that people that are tall are unusual. If you were like 7 feet tall, nobody says anything to you that you're unusual. I mean, it's not normal. You're normal. It's just like your DNA, your genetics, gave you a body that's taller than the average, right? But this is the problem we have right now with people that have sensitivity, hypersensitivity, right? So this is in our studies indicates that it has to do with our body as well. Mediumship is a property of the body. There are fundamental ways of your body is built, right, that allow you for a greater or lesser sensitivity to the phenomena itself, right? So some people just like are 7 feet tall when it comes to mediumship because they're hypersensitive, they can perceive things. Others are 4 feet tall, so in a sense that their sensitivity is very limited, so which means they barely have to deal with it. They can still train. Everybody can get a little bit better, right, if you educate it. But there is a component that has to do with the way your biology has been forged. We're not going to get into the details. We have in the Spiritist movement a nice body of study already of what causes it, but is not the main topic today. But just be aware that's kind of where we are right now. But when I'm saying that we can use mediumship as a healing tool, I'm not specifically talking about the one type of mediumship which is healing as well. So one of the most famous uses of mediumship, I would say, is when you have a healer. We have it's still inside the physical phenomena where people get biological healing from disease. I'm not talking about that type of healing today, right? We're talking about a healing of the soul of the being, right? Of who we are. Here's the kicker, right? In Spiritism, we're Christians because we fundamentally work based on the gospel of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus 2000 years ago, right? With the life he had on earth and with the experiences that guided. In the fundamental commandment of Christianity, of teachings of Jesus, we forget about that. But the fundamental one, there's only one major commandment in the gospel, which is love God above all things, right? Tough for us because we don't understand God. It's still something that we can feel, but we cannot understand. But like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Love thy neighbor as yourself, right? Which is fundamentally a life connected to others, making an impact in other people's life, right? So that is the gospel. The gospel is fundamentally a pathway to connect us to others and to develop this loving relationship, even with our enemies, even with those that don't. And it goes profoundly into this connection between this community, right? Connecting us to our community, and fundamentally, the goal, the apps, the final destination we're going to is to develop a holistic, this global love where we will be a being that simply loves the universe, that connects it with everything involved in it. So we're far from that, but we're working right now in having compassion to one another, which is a beginning. That if you think about Earth right now, we struggle with compassion, right? Right, compassion, just tolerating each other, right? Just having seeing a brother or a sister, seeing another person as like me, right? So we're struggling that in those early stages, right? And that but the goal of the gospel is transforming us into loving beings. So we're connecting with all people around us, right? So with that in mind, think about this. When we study the gospel, you see that how much the work of Jesus itself, right, and his in his life, right, was really interacting with others, interacting with people, right? Of course, there's, if you read the gospel, you see that there's a lot of healing going on over there. We can imagine 2000 years ago, right, with type of healthcare available at the time, with the lack of resources for treating diseases, and the tremendous limitation the masses have in terms of resources, right? Diseases were rampant, and there was a lot of problems with the diseases that we now almost eradicated in our society, were plagues at the time, and so health was a major concern for the populace, for a large swath of the population. And Jesus, part of what he did was this work of healing and connecting with that community as well, right? For us, that's a very interesting call, a very interesting understanding of how we can use this tool as well. What expected of us is the same today, right? We're expecting to connect with our communities. We expect to help each other. We expect to do the best we can to improve our life, but not just our life, the life of those around us, because those things are connected, right? Does that make sense? That's the goal. And here comes one thing. Yes, so we have 8 billion people, right, on the flesh right now on Earth, give or take, right? But if this is true, and we don't die, how many people have already passed to the other side and are on Earth as well, like us? We believe that number is fairly high, right? So which means we're talking about maybe double the incarnate population at this point in time, right? Or close to that. We don't know exactly. We have numbers from the past, from Chico Xavier, but we're talking about at least 14 billion people, or 16 billion people on the other side as well, right? So that community is there. Who are those people? Just like us. They're people, right? And here's the thing. Do they have problems? You can ask the questions. Do we have problems? what are our major problems? Emotional, right? So we have physical problems here as well, but what really brings challenges to us is the emotion. It's what's inside of us, is perception, and this is where we're struggling, right? And if we are struggling here, chances are humans, when we cross to the other side, if you have emotional problems, if your emotions are not in balance right here, right now, and if we cross to the other side, if we detach from the body, chances are, chances are, my emotions might not be in a good place as well. Because emotions, the way we are developed inside, the way our experiences form and you perceive our experiences, right? Those are not in the body, right? Those are not in the body. They're in the mind. I make a joke here in when we here in San Diego when we I love going to the ocean, going to the in the shoreline and spending some times in the breeze. And I have been to the shoreline sometimes, many times, and I feel like the energy, the ocean breeze, and that thing that makes me so happy, connect me with nature. I find it so appeasing, so a warming place to be, right? But I've been to the shoreline as well when my mind was not in a good place and I was facing a difficult problem, right? And I was still in this hell of a situation because my mind was, that's where my mind was at that moment. And the place is exactly the same, right? So I think you have experienced that as well. So we live in our minds, not in our bodies, right? We live in our minds. We can be in the favorite place, but if your mind's not there, if your mind's polluted, if your mind is it's dealing with some complex emotions, situations, experience, perceptions, there's where you are, right? So mediumship then opens up an interesting door, right, for us in the Spiritist movement, because unfortunately, given the situation we're dealing in the physical, in the emotional side here, in the in incarnates, right? Unfortunately, uh, there's a mirror of that for those that cross to the other side, because there's a tremendous challenge in terms of emotional balance as well. And worse today, in a way, is that we're not preparing right now because the mainstream understanding of our society is not a life that continues. Many people no longer prepare. Many people are not even aware, don't even think about this. If you talk to your friends and community, you see that how many people just live their lives as gonna end, right? They don't even entertain the hypothesis that life continues, right? Even prepare something or do something that would make sense. And fundamentally, that's why we're disconnected from each other, human beings, right? Because what on the other side, what continues is humanity, right? It's who we are. It's our connections, our communities, right? So on the other side, we're having now a situation where there's a lot of emotional imbalance. So, can we help? Can we help? Well, yes, we can, right? Because many people question, like, shouldn't God, shouldn't the good spirits, the mentors, the angels, whatever you want to call them, shouldn't them all welcome the people that cross to the other side and make them happy, or use whatever power they have to transform them into loving beings so there's no suffering on the other side? That many people argue that, right? So why God allows suffering on the spiritual side once we disconnect from the body, right? And I like to ask the same question. So, well, if God is doing that when we are on the other side, why wouldn't God do this now while we're here? Why there's suffering? Why there's suffering right now in the flesh? Why are we going through all what we're going right now? Right? Why would God wait until we die, to heal our spirits? Right? Could heal right now. So the question is, if we suffer now, it's not because of God, because we believe God is doing everything possible to foster our growth right here, right now, every single moment. But for some reason, and that's something for you to ask God, and and I'll certainly do if I is why God gave us the free will, what God gave us this um, ability to make our own choices, and that's what we're going through right now. The same way we make our choices right now, we choose our path when as we are in the flesh, we also do the same on the other side. It's a continuation. That's why the way in Spiritism we see is this is simply a continuation. Our mind continues and we still make our own choices. Yes, there are limitations to our choices, of course, right? The laws of nature embrace us, and God's love eventually intervenes, right? But the way is for us to grow. The goal of this experience is growth, is maturity, is transforming us into this loving beings, right? So if we don't make those choices here right now, right, what makes you believe that we will make those choices on the other side? That's the challenge, right? So mediumship opens an opportunity for us to interact on the other side with minds on the other side, right? And what kind of minds are on the other side? Oh, the wide spectrum of minds we have right here, right now. We have a lot of people with wisdom, right, and experience, compassionate, loving, but we also have people that have not developed wisdom yet, have not developed compassion, and still live in the same perspectives they might have during the material experience, right? Compound, if you did not prepare, if you're not aware of what's coming to you or what could happen to you, if you have absolutely ignorance when it comes to the afterlife, just per se, that may be already a tremendous challenge for how you experience the afterlife. If you just don't have no idea it's going to happen, right? So mediumship allows us to interact with those beings, right? And one of the beautiful parts of it is that during this interaction, a beautiful thing happened. And that's why mediumship can be special. And we, as incarnates, as humans in the flesh, still can have an impact, or we can become a useful tool for the mentors, for the loving beings that are helping each other. We provide a body experience once again. We, if properly trained, if properly balanced, right, we can join, we can allow another mind to connect with us briefly, even if this mind is extremely unbalanced, but we give them the vital energy they missed or they lost, of course, naturally, when we discarnated, right? And those brief moments can be used, right, for tremendous healing in both sides, right? Sometimes a few minutes of experience of someone that has been exposed to a very distressful experience, a lack of understanding and distress, right? For a few moments of comfort can change everything. Think about your own life, right? How many times you might have experienced distress, you might have experienced a difficult situation, but just found someone that sat down with you, that had a conversation, interaction with you, brought you some positive energy, connected to you mind to mind, and healed and prepared you to interact with this experience in a much better way. Think about that. How many minutes sometimes may have changed our life, and how many positive interactions we might have had with some people that actually changed our life. I myself have been blessed in my life many times to have had those people around me that made that possible. And if you think about that, mediumship opens that opportunity, right? Because we can interact with those that are in distress on the other side, and if we are balanced enough, capable enough, trained enough, right, we might create that opportunity to someone in need of help. How does that help us? That is the gospel in action, because the gospel in action is transforming, is providing to our community the tools to help each other. Is being a force for good in anybody's life. Yes, can you do it? There's many ways to do that. Of course, there's the material ways to do it tremendously, but presence and so on. And of course, there's but mediumship opens one more door for that, right? That's why in the Spiritist movement, this is very typical. I know a lot of people, when they think about mediumship, they think about interacting with higher beings, right? Oh, why don't interact with the wise ones, with the higher beings that can tell us how the things work? They can dispense advice to us and maybe tell us things we don't know about the universe, and that's enticing. That's interesting, and I think proper in some occasions as well. I think if you think about Spiritism itself, Spiritism is the work of Kardec of inquiring to higher beings how the spiritual world looks like and what are the laws of the spiritual work. That's amazing, right? That's how Spiritism started, right? That's why we call Allan Kardec the codifier, right? Not the creator of Spiritism, the codifier, because he put together the information he was available to him, right, from the spirits, right? So that takes its place. And by the way, it's a very important use of mediumship as well. But for the majority of us, especially when we think about Earth, there's learning, right? There's learning. There's the high intellectual part of it. But on a planet like ours, where our society is struggling on the basics, there's a lot of lag work in just helping one another, right? Yes, there's the learning, right? And but there's also the companionship, the being together, and that's where mediumship shines as a tool of healing. When we do this in the study in the group, and I've been working with mediumship. Yeah, I don't want to do the math, but like 30 or 40 years, maybe 30 years for sure, inside the Spiritist framework, and I've met many people. Like we have had tremendous interactions with higher beings as well, but the bulk of the work, for my blessing, has been with those that actually are not in a good place, right? And I feel extremely blessed to have done that, right? And I know many times we bump into people who said, no, I just want to have this healing interaction with beams of light, right? Because they give me peace. And of course, if you are a medium, right? In my case, I am not very capable one, but I'm a medium nonetheless. All right. When you interact with a being of light, it's an amazing experience, right? So it's the balance. You get a little bit of their energy and their, it's fantastic. But when we interact with a person that's not in a good place, that's suffering, that is sometimes point blank painful, right? Point blank painful, because for a few moments you have a mind to mind interaction. And think about yourself. If you talk to a friend that is suffering, if you have compassion, you're going to feel a little bit of it. It's not pleasant, right? But it's necessary. It's necessary, because if you love that friend, if you have a connection, if you have somebody, you want to help, you want to be part of that, and sometimes that's needed, right, to manifest our to manifest the gospel, or to manifest our creation of community, our manifestation of love, right? So in a way, what I'm trying to encourage you, what I'm trying to share this vision, that mediumship can be a tremendous tool for healing from a higher level, where we manifest the work of the gospel as well, because we are interacting with a variety of people, right? And here's the thing: we have to nail this teaching to the ground, make sure people understand how we see it. We sometimes say spirits, and even in our work in the group right now, we're trying to change a little bit the wording. We say person. If you use mediumship, if you're interacting mind to mind, you are fundamentally interacting with a person, right? When you say spirit, sometimes it gets fantastic, gets like a little bit of, no, it's a person. It's a person that once was in the flesh, right? Like us, had a family, right? Went through life like we are going through right now, right? And it just like happened that the moment, most likely, actually, there's some situations where you can interact with the people who are still incarnate, but that's the exception. But normally, so they are just people that pass, and they are no longer in their body, but they're people. They're just people like us with emotions, tastes, preferences, with all the things we do. They're people, right? They're fundamentally people. So you interact with them as you interact with people. So love thy neighbor as a commandment from Christianity includes all humans, right? Doesn't matter if they're in the flesh or not, right? So that's why my point is, don't be discouraged by the challenges of dealing with those that are suffering in the spiritual realm, right? In fact, that can be a tremendous blessing. And I make this joke. We make this joke sometimes in the work we do. That imagine if you do this work like for years, right? Every week, wherever time your group gets together and does the work. Let's say every week, right? Which is typical, right? And we help maybe one person every week. Maybe you made a difference with one person's life, right? How do you remember the people that made a difference in your life, right? What an opportunity we have. What an opportunity we have to simply manifest the gospel by understanding that humans are much more than the flesh. And we are in an environment where mediumship is understood, and we can train it, and we can become a useful tool, right? Tell me a person that has a chance every week to have an impactful relationship with someone, right? Do we have it? No. In our material lives today, many times we have no impactful relationship with anyone for months. We have our friends, we have our co-workers, right? Sometimes we don't have any impactful interaction with people in a flesh, right? Because we have much better material lives today than we had in the past. Now you understand why Jesus was so focused on the suffering, because they are open-minded, right? So right now in our material side, especially here for us in America, we're in the wealthiest nation on the planet, so we have tremendous material resources. So people are not open. People are sometimes closed in their material life, right? Blessed if you have the opportunity to help people in your job or in your interaction. If you're doing work with people that are actually suffering, blessed, you're blessed, right? In the physical realm, right? And there's many of those opportunities, by the way, but it's harder for people to pursue those. Many people do though, right? There's many ways you can interact with your community, seek out those that are in need of tremendous help. But another way is also through mediumship as well, right? So we're also reaching out to our community. We're also being a force for good in our connection, right? That was kind of what I was planning to talk to you today. I don't know if you guys have had any questions. I have a few things I could talk about as well. Oh, Peter, I think you have announcements to do as well, right?
So thank you so much, Anisio, for your very inspiring presentation. Actually, I'm going to mention an event in connection with this presentation today before we get to our announcements, which is, for those of you who are interested, the International Spiritist Council has a program called Dialogues on Mediumship. Tomorrow, Sunday, October 26th, there will be a program called Overcoming Challenges in Spiritist Mediumship Meetings. It'll be questions and answers with Daniel Assisi. It's going to be held in English, this event. It'll feature Dan, and it will be tomorrow in the United States. It will be tomorrow, October 26th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're available, and no doubt this will also be available afterwards on YouTube. Okay.
That's amazing.
Okay. So please stay with us for the Q&A session. But first, I have some announcements. The 19th U.S. Spiritist Symposium The USSF annual national event took place on September 20th, 2025 in Ann Arbor, Michigan. This year's theme was the evolution of consciousness, a path towards enlightenment. All talks, panels, and Q&A sessions are now available on the USSF YouTube channel. Number 2, there's a podcast-like series, Psychology and Spirituality, A Bridge to a Better Life, based on the works of Joanna de Angelis. A new episode every Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, available on YouTube and Spotify. And there's a new book release, The Spiritist Review 1866 by Allan Kardec. It is available on spiritistbooks.us. There is also a wonderful app called Be My Hope. This app offers uplifting content in a collection of videos, daily messages, and audio materials. Download it now from the App Store or Google Play. It is free. And now available are 7 free professionally recorded Spiritist audiobooks sponsored and produced by the Spiritist Society of the Carolinas. At your own pace, listen to Allan Kardec's foundational works on YouTube at Spiritist Society Carolinas or the USSF YouTube channel. Highly recommended. It's wonderful recordings and a great way to receive and listen to the Spiritist codification. And finally, on the screen, please note there is a QR code. If you want to help the USSF promote Spiritism to everyone, please scan the QR code on screen for your donation. Okay, let us get to our questions and answers. So the first one is from Daniel Santos. Hi, Daniel. If a mediumistic entity provides a diagnosis that contradicts a diagnosis given by a licensed physician using modern medical technology, for example, MRI, blood work, etc., which diagnosis should the patient prioritize and on what basis? What is the rationale for trusting a spiritual diagnosis over a medically empirical one?
Wow. Well, this question is very important. Very important.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the thing. Give Caesar what's Caesar's, God what's God, right? We're not physicians. So we're not replacing physicians, right? And here's the thing. The spiritual therapy is complementary. So when you do a treatment right now from a disease or any sort of medical problems, your main source of healing will come from medicine, right? That is the way we have evolved, and this is working extremely well for us, guys. So think about how many years we expect to live right now, and that's thank you to the medical field and to all the scientific developments around us, so on. So fundamentally, medicine has done a tremendous, incredible job in keeping us healthy. And does it have problems? Of course, they're humans, because the physicians are humans, but it has done tremendously well. So you fundamentally are treated right now officially by a medical doctor. That's the treatment. You listen to that. You do what it's your best chance, right? It's your best healing will come from that. Spiritual healing comes as an addendum, right? And mediumship is extremely challenging today, especially when it comes through information. How do you know? This is Kardec defined in the medium's book, right? The major challenges with mediumship. What are the major challenges with mediumship? There's two major challenges. Many, but two major challenges, right? One, right, It's a thing called obsession, which is when this interaction mind to mind becomes negative. Same way as people. If you have a toxic person in your life, it can bring a lot of challenge to your life, right? Well, give and take. So if the minds on the other side are the same as here, it's just people, it's not difficult to perceive that there might be a toxic relationship mind to mind as well from the other side, because the people are the same, right? So, and this is one thing called Kardec calls obsession. We have a very important area of study for us, and so on. The other one is identity, right? How you know who you're talking to, right? When you have an interaction through mediumship, how you identify? Where is the social security, the idea of the spirit you're talking to? How you know the spirit is wise or not? It's very difficult. It's a very difficult endeavor to know who you're talking to. And some people say, I know because I feel. Oh, are you sure? Have you heard about scams? Have you heard about, just know that right now there's billions of dollars being made by scammers all over the world for people that are just like taking our money, convincing us of all sort of stuff, right? It's very delicate. So those two things are very delicate, right? Mediumship is a very difficult endeavor right now because we still don't have science helping us. So it's pretty much, there's a lot of traps, a lot of difficulties because we're dealing mind to mind. We're dealing with people with intelligence, right? So how do you know the identity of that spirit that gave you the diagnosis? Does he or she, because some people think that because you're interacting with the spirit, right, the spirit is wise. Is it? We don't know. It might be or might be not, right? And chances are it might not be, right? That's why the fundamental paradigm right now is the medical treatment is the core, is the best we have in society right now. Do they make mistakes? Yes, they do sometimes because we're humans, right? But it's the best shot. Is what you take it as the base, right? And the spiritual treatment comes as complementary, right? Complementary, because it has to do with your mind, with your perception, with your emotions. And here's one thing, guys, we have to understand. This surprised me that we don't talk so much about that, and even medical. Just one thing. There's a fantastic phenomena, well documented in medicine. In fact, if you go to a pharmacy, pretty much every single drug available to you there was tested, right, before it became commercial, right? And every single one of those drugs had to go through a phenomenon called the placebo effect. Because the problem is, when you test a drug, you have to compare with something, right, to see if the drug is effective, right? And here's the problem they faced when they test drugs against ineffective substances, right, like aspirin or something or sugar, something that has supposed to be no effect at all. About a third of the people that take the completely ineffective substance heal, exactly the same way as those that took the real medicine. A third of the people heal, right? So 1/3. This is medical. This is not spiritism, right? This is like a third of the people that take completely ineffective substance heal the same way as if they have taken a proper substance. So how important are our minds? So if a spirit is worrying about MRI or something, this is not a good thing because it's not our tool. We shouldn't be healing. We shouldn't be working on that. Our sometimes if you tell someone, hey, hang in there, strength, you're gonna make it. You're gonna go through this. This is a billion times more effective than the spirit talking about MRI results, right? Because that's not what we're supposed to do. You understand, right? So we have the emotional, the spiritual work to do on our side, and don't be. This is extremely powerful, right? But never ever, So fundamental pillar of healing right now is medical. You don't disrupt the medical treatment in no hypothesis. You complement, right, with the emotional support that's needed, and that's extremely powerful, by the way.
All right. Thank you, Anisio. It's a very important and very complex subject.
Yep.
Always consult a medical professional. Okay. This next question is from Yasko Arakawa. Hi, Yasko. Can the mediumship practice be the healing tool for the medium, him or herself? How?
I love this question.
Mm-hmm.
I love this question so much because we think we're healing others, right? We get together as a group and we start practicing it. And sometimes we forget. We come, and that's great, right? We come with that intention of being healers, right? We're there to help the people, the consciousness on the other side, humans like us that are on the flesh, and we feel so good. What we don't realize is that we're exactly in the same process. We're being healed as well from inside. We are practicing goodness, right? I have the blessing to sometimes do for those that are more familiar. I know for people that are not familiar, this might be sound strange, but part of our work, I can do the counseling work or the dialogue, or depending on how you call it, which is the person that talks sometimes with those individuals, right? That come to visit us, or blessed us with their presence, right? And I like to tell them, you and I are here for the same reason. You and I here, and we have limited what you can do to you to help you, but here among us are those that can help you. So we are being helped in many situations way more than we're helping. It's just that the help for us is more invisible. It's like what I tell people, like, think about life on Earth for a little bit. We live in a rocky planet, in a tiny atmosphere that's just a few miles wide, and we have the proper balance of heat, temperature, gases, gravity that sustain our life. Anything goes off, we're gone. Right? And here we are. Think how many things have to be working for our life to manifest. A bit off of oxygen and we're gone. Right? Just a little space, object coming close to Earth, messing up with us, we're gone. And here we are. We have been here as biology on Earth for 1 billion years, somewhat, So there's a lot of things happening. We are going to be helped tremendously. And I use this expression. This is to me very, very practical. It's like, we have people that love. So imagine, right, how much love you received from a mother or a father that you helped his or her son or daughter to be helped. How you value those that help your kids. How grateful you are if somebody does something good to somebody you love. What do you feel for someone that treats your daughter, your son well? We are dealing with people. So we're having people interaction, right? That's why mediumship is such a serious topic, right? We are dealing with people. We say spirit sometimes, some people kind of detach as an entity, right? No, it's a person. It's a person like you and I, right? Just be mindful of that. It's a person, which means it has the same interactions, right? So it's extremely, I love this. And I think I personally, I cannot prove that. I don't have documentation to show you. I don't have paperwork, but I think if you work in this kind of work, you will receive way more than you give. I think.
Thank you. We get help in all kinds of ways that we often don't even notice, which is wonderful. Okay, this next one is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Can you comment on current studies on mediumship?
If you talk about science, right? I'm gonna. There's a lot of work going on, but the problem is, we still don't see mind out of the body. So I think the mainstream view is that humans are fundamentally biological beings, right? Which means the brain is who we are. Once the brain stops, nothing exists anymore, and that pretty much closes the door, right? But mediumship can be studied. I think they study it, but through the phenomena. And sometimes we have this discussion in our group. Kardec. If you think about Kardec actually was drawn to this whole experience by the physical phenomena, right? So at the time, if you guys check a little bit what happened in the 1800s, late 1800s, they were very popular. It was a fad. I mean, it was a very popular thing to go attend those seances where tables were moving and things were happening and breaking, and that was very interesting. That was before movie theaters, before internet, before video games. I mean, people were looking for entertainment, and that was interesting back then, right? And Kardec, came through this phenomena via that too, right? And some people say, why don't we just create the physical phenomena for scientists right now and go through that path? We have been tried many times. The problem is that when you study an atom, right? Like if you have a collider and you make two atoms crash, you can do that a million times, and you just need the energy, and the atoms will behave the same way. When we have humans in the picture, that's a problem. And mediumship is fundamentally a human process. There's human energy needed for that to happen, right? So in a simplistic way to say, it's a human. And humans have a mind of their own. The phenomena are not repetitive consistently, because think about yourself, how many times your mind changes, right? So they're not so easy. Physical phenomena is not as easy to be repeated consistently, because it depends on humans, right? Okay, that's one side. And then I think science is very close to understanding the mind out of the body. That the mind is, there's already enough indications that the mind might not be centered in the brain. I think that's where we're going to come first, right? There's already, I think, a lot of indications that that's the case, right? Once that's established, I think mediumship would become later. Would become a side product, but first we have to understand that that problem. But there's many people dealing with this right now. I don't know. I'm just gonna mention one here. There's many people dealing with this. Like there's the interesting TED talk when we talk about mediumship in our group. We point people to. It's a TED talk from Eleanor Ludgen, right? So she is a hearing voice community. There's a major problem right now if you hear voices in psychology, right? If you hear a voice, you might be diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I'm not going to get into that. It's a whole different universe that people are suffering right now, right? And if you search for a TED talk, hearing voices is the voices in my head. Google the voices in my head, right? TED talk. She's going to describe you the whole experience we go through in Spiritism. We understand it. She's not Spiritist. She's a psychologist, actually, with great. She's a researcher in that field, right? Had to go through everything we know for free. Everything we get in Spiritism as part of our understanding. She had to dig herself out of that, and the conclusions she ended up reaching is the same as we do, through a different perspective. She reached the conclusion of compassion to the voices, which is absolutely the same gospel, right? The same way. Compassion is a love to one another. But she reached it without the tools we have in Spiritism. She had to figure it out. So I recommend you check that. For instance, if you want to see, there's the spirit release technique as well in psychology, as well, therapy, where people what if you could release something, they don't think it's real, but they do it, treat it, and it's effective. So there's a lot going on right now. But I think but this is my opinion, I think the most important thing right now is to understand, and I think it's going to happen, it's a question of time, that the mind is external of the body. That will open the gates of a lot of study on what the consequences of that fact, right?
Thank you, Anisio. This too is a fascinating subject. Okay, next question from Adilson Jayato. Hi, Anisio. Thank you for sharing this important subject with great thoughts. What is your vision about the development of mediumship practice in the U.S.? Do you feel that it is increasing?
Mediumship in the United States, it's very popular, right? But I recommend, if you are a spiritist, all right, that you visit the communities around you wherever you are in the United States, right? And there's a lot of healing movement. But fundamentally, the movement is different. All right, the movement is different. It's not necessarily a Christian movement, right? It has characteristics that are specific to its own, right? There's a lot of healing. The focus is a lot on the healing, right? And about physical healing and the interaction with the mentors, right? There's some groups that maybe do spirit release, which is similar to us, but very little. Depending, I guess this is very local, right? So you see that the movement is very local, depending on who does the work in your town, in your community. But I do recommend that you broaden that, and you. Especially if you come from Brazil, if you're a spiritist, if you're familiar with the movement, in the United States, in the United States, it's very interesting to get into your community, find the groups that work with mediumship. You find them; they are everywhere, right? It's a very popular movement. They're very popular. They're not mainstream as well, right? But it's there, right? And then you can start drawing the bridges, right, and see how we can connect with those and so on, how it works. The main difference, I would say, that tend to be a main difference is that in Spiritism we do have this Christian, what we talked about today, if you think about, right, it's the using of the techniques of mediumship as a healing tool for consciousness out of the body as well for people. And this whole conversation today is probably what Spiritism brings to the table, right? It's this is what in many cases what we focus on, and we think it's a very healing, very incredible, productive way of dealing with mediumship. But what I'm just going to say that because we talk so much about mediumship and spiritism, we have to remember that mediumship is a human ability. It's a human ability. There's a percentage of mediums everywhere, right? Everywhere. So it's a biological thing. There's mediums everywhere. In every culture, in every place, you will find the phenomena, because the phenomena is a human phenomena, right? The challenge is sometimes this phenomenon is poorly understood, that leads to tremendous suffering, right? But it's everywhere. It's a human phenomenon. Mediumship is not spiritist thing. It's a human phenomena, right? And it is everywhere. So people deal with it the way they can, right? I specifically think that we're blessed in the spiritist movement because we have a framework to deal with those things, right? But it's not a choice. People have to deal with it anyway.
Okay, thank you, Anisio. Another question. From the U.S. Spiritist Federation. Can you recommend how to get more reliable information on mediumship for those who are not sure how to manage it? Maybe elaborate.
I wish I could.
Yeah.
This is the challenge, guys. This is really the challenge with mediumship right now, right? That's why Kardec listed to its identity and obsession. Mediumship right now, it's a wild west, right? It is difficult because nothing can replace your judgment. Nothing is like you could rephrase this and say like this: can I guarantee that all my relationships with people will be positive and will get a better quality of information I receive from people? It's the same problem. That's the challenge of mediumship. There's no substitute to raising your education, your awareness, your rational thinking, your logical thinking. Nothing can replace that. It's very difficult. It's very difficult. I'm very humble every day. I mean, that's why I feel like a novice. Despite all my experience, I still deal with things out of the blue that hit me from the side, and oh my goodness, and I didn't see it. So fundamentally, here's the problem with mediumship. You have to understand that you're dealing with people, and people are extremely intelligent, creative, resourceful, right? So they come up with stuff. They're intelligent, right? Spirits are people, right? So they're intelligent. Some very intelligent, others not so much, but like us. So it's a very difficult right now because we don't have any support from science, right? We don't have any machines or anything. We are doing it we're in the early days. Pardon me. So I think 100, 200, 300 years from now, we'll look back to what we do with mediumship the same way we think about medicine 300 years ago, right? In a We're in a primitive stage of mediumship. It's still artisanal. It's still something that has to be done. So unfortunately today, it's nothing replaces your own study. That's why study as a group. It's easier because you have minds to bounce the ideas about. Be skeptical. Kardec was very good. I mean, that's one of the great things about the work of Kardec, the Minus book. Some people say, "Oh, it's old." No, it's pretty up to date to the challenge we face today. Like, be Kardec mentions, right? It's better to discard 9 truths than take one falsehood, right? And it's a methodology of being skeptical and rationally skeptical, right? In the same way when we deal with important things with people we don't know, right? It's a difficult endeavor, right? And be humble, right? Don't think mediumship is not something where I'm going to master in this life. We're not going to master it in this life. It's an endeavor that transcends our understanding, even in the physical. That's why, in a way, you're going to see that the mediums have become more productive, right? The productive mediums that we have in our movement, and they have a mentor. They have a very strong connection with a mentor. Without a mentor, you cannot be productive because you are fundamentally in a weak spot being in the flesh. Because your senses are somewhat, this is the main thing about who we are as humans, right? Our senses are now, if we are in the flesh like we are right now, our senses are doomed. Our spiritual perceptions are all deemed down to a certain degree so we can live in the flesh. So that's designed by that, because you don't want to have your memory of the past life right now, because that would create a lot of challenges you don't need right now. You're trying to start over. You're starting to redress some of those experiences. It's important for us to have a limited ability in the spiritual realm because we are in a lower realm. We are here still struggling with the basic balance and equilibrium, emotional. We're in the very early stages of spirituality. That's why we need this dumb down of our spiritual abilities for our own healing, for our own good. Right. So that's why you need to have the connection with mentors that will guide you, because otherwise it becomes a minefield. If you see that all very productive mediums have a very strong connection with the mentors, right? And be mindful. He said Kardec does this masterfully in the discussing obsessions. Your spirits are people, so they also have opinions. They also have perceptions that might or might not be accurate. It's as simple as that, right?
Okay, thank you. I'll just quickly add to that since Spiritists and Spiritist centers are committed to the safe practice of mediumship, if somebody goes to a Spiritist center and becomes familiar with the Spiritism in general, with the codification and so forth, that can be the beginnings of learning then how to discover more about mediumship and safe ways to engage in it when the time is right. Mhm. Okay, we have time for one more question, and this is from the U.S. Spiritist Federation. In what way can practicing mediumship be used to work on behalf of Jesus?
That's the thing. That's the key, right? It's the manifestation of love, right? So it's following the major commandment, right? Love thy neighbor, love God above all things, love thy neighbor as yourself, right? So mediumship as a tool to interacting with people, the same way we manifest compassion in our communities, we deal with incarnates like us, like people, right? We manifest interactions, we have positive interactions with them, and we create an emotional space where we thrive, right? Manifesting compassion and love. Mediumship is the same thing. If you create that same environment with people, right? So you interact positively and you're open to all, right? You create a place where it's safe for the interaction to happen, right? So what is the goal of a Spiritist center, right? I think, pegging back a little bit on what Peter just said. So we try to create that. We try to create a safe space in our groups, right? So we can practice manifesting this compassion and so on. Being aware that we're dealing with people, being aware that we're creating an environment as well, right? Of respect, of compassion. And so this is how we practice the gospel. We leave the gospel. The gospel is not to be, the gospel is not supposed to be outside of us, right? We're supposed to leave the gospel. We're supposed to leave the compassion, the charity, and the connection. In treating others, we would have them treat us. It's a way of life, right? And mediumship is an extension. It's just a tool that if you leave the gospel, you're going to use properly, right? For instance, we have trainings, right? We have in our group, we have the education that takes time, takes years. It's the difficult process to educate yourself in mediumship. It should be, but it shouldn't be quick, right? Because first, you are the laboratory, you are the person being trained, and you live in your laboratory every day. So it's a very delicate process that has to be lived with the balance and reason, right? But for instance, we are in training. We're training with mediums in the beginning stuff. Every group is different. Every group of people is unique. That's why if mediumship is, every single person in the group is fundamental. It's part of the work, and every group of people is unique because you have 4, 5, 10 people unique, right? And I remember sometimes going to a training group and we start having communications, and then people sometimes laugh about something that happened over there, and you have to okay. So we have to educate. No, hey, it's a person. When a person is opening up, something's going on. I know it might sound funny to you, but be careful, because for that person, it's a very deep thing, right? So, for instance, you have to treat all the conversations that happen inside the Spiritist meeting as precious, confidential. You're not talking about that all the time, right? You can use for educational purpose, but nameless, disconnected, and so on. But so you have to treat those conversations in the Spiritist center as you would respect other people from people in your life, right? So all those things come along, right? So, but fundamentally, is like the way you treat people is the way you treat spirits, the same way, right? Because they're people, just like will, right? So that's kind of, you manifest the same way you manifest the gospel in your life, living with the people in your community. No difference in mediumship. You're gonna have to manifest the same way. That's why for us, we don't believe that there are evil spirits, right? There are people that might be on the stage of evil, the same way we have people on the stage of evil on earth, right? Because they're causing destruction. And evil is relative. You have to study. Evil is usually ignorance, right? Ignorance, right? Usually, not necessarily, right? But it's just that people are in a destructive mindset, right? So that's why we have to be compassionate the same way. It's the same rules of applying the gospel. Mediumship is just an extension of human relationship, if you think about from approach we just discussed, that they're just people, right?
Okay. Thank you, Anisio. Very good points. And a heartfelt thanks to everyone who joined us for today's live talk, and to those who regularly follow weekly Spiritism Talk series. Your continued engagement is greatly appreciated. We invite you to join us next Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time for our upcoming live session where Brian Vosberg will explore the topic, A Call to Action. We look forward to your participation. Anisio, before we close the live, could you end with your final remarks and followed by a final prayer, please?
Without a doubt. And I think, just again, so mediumship is a very beautiful voyage, but it's something that on earth we don't fully master, and we won't fully master for some time. But I think we already have the opportunity to work with it and make a positive difference in our communities right now, right? And with that in mind, I could say a few words like Mother, Father, God, Divine Creator, thank you very much for this opportunity, for this moment, for this life, and for all the resources that come together so we might exist, we might manifest, and we might have this opportunity in Mother Earth. May your blessings, Divine Creator, reach all of us, the living beings of Earth, wherever we might be, in the flesh or in spirit. And with that in mind, we humbly ask permission to close our work this morning. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Thank you.